Hey Deadheads, welcome to
Dead Authors Club, where we resurrect the classics
and bury the complexity.
We're your club presidents,
Andrew Jackson
and Lyndon B. Johnson.
Get started. Oh, no.
Welcome to episode 6.
Episode 6, welcome.
Here we are.
We are so excited. We've been really struggling to make this because we wanted to give Edith Wharton the respect that she deserves.
There's a lot to unpack in this.
Yeah, we're going to get into some of her other works later in other episodes.
Yes.
But
yeah, she definitely has way more famous works. She is known for Age of Innocence, House of Mirth, but we started with the Buccaneers for many reasons. One being because the show was out that we found on our own on accident, and it was one of our favorites.
And this is how we discovered Edith Wharton.
Yes, it is. So
Because
we found out it was a book, ordered it, and got really we just hyperfixated for a while. So
yeah, especially you.
Yeah,
You hyperfixated on Edith Wharton for a long time. I just got into, I just read the book.
Yeah, she definitely became my favorite author, and I was like, dang, she'll never write another one. And I'm so sad. But there's so much to discover with her. So this one's really interesting though, because it's the last novel she was ever meaning to write, and she died before it was finished.
Yeah, it was published posthumously, so they published it after she died, even though it was unfinished.
Right, and so what they did was that she left a synopsis of what is to happen, a written out outline, and scholars have kind of studied her writing style, what was supposed to happen, and they took that, and yours is actually different. So my version and hers, who finished them, are different. So there's actually different versions of the way the story goes that are published. It's kind of really interesting. Yeah. So yours is more widely known as the ultimate finish, right? Maggie Wadey. No, where did I get that name from?
Not even close. Not even close.
Where did I get that name from? Who's that? I'm not going to repeat that name because it might be somebody I know.
We'll look into that. We might cut that out.
No.
Marianne Mainwaring is her name.
Maybe the one that I said was the one that finished mine. Anyway.
She finished the one that I read, and she was actually very well studied in Edith Wharton's writing and writing style, and she was just a huge enthusiast of Edith Wharton. Edith Wharton.
Edith Wharton.
Edie Wharton.
Yeah.
She was a huge Edith Wharton enthusiast, and so she studied her works and finished the book in the way that she felt would, pay homage to all of the hard work that Edith Wharton did to write this.
So what we're going to do with this episode is we're going to go over, like we always do, the synopsis. Right. We're going to go over Edith Wharton's together, and then we can kind of discuss the way our versions went in different directions, because it's really interesting.
Let me preface real quick.
Okay.
To preface one more thing. Edith Wharton's original draft of this was unedited, except for one scene that she revised, and she really solidified that before she died. But the rest of it was very much unedited. This version that I read is edited, but I also listened to the audiobook that is the original Edith Wharton's draft pre-editing. So I was able to see that there's a lot of differences in this book, from this book to, Edith Wharton's original. So there's going to be there will be some discrepancies because your book's different. The ending is different, but ours were also both edited, I think.
Yeah, and by separate scholars.
Yes. So it's going to be a little interesting. We're going to take you on a journey because we have different notes.
That's what took us so long. We got together to do this podcast 2 nights ago, and we were talking about it, and we're like, wait, that's not.
Yeah, is this in yours?
That doesn't happen.
This isn't in mine.
Right. And I've read mine twice now, once for fun, once for the podcast. And so I was like, no, definitely not. And then you're like, it's right here. Here's the text evidence. So then we realized what was going on, and we had to postpone and come with better notes and comparisons.
Yes.
So
I've listened to 2 different versions.
Yes.
I
have 2.
And you've also listened to 2 different versions. Yep. So we have a lot of different notes.
Here we go. So the book definitely opens up with Mrs. St. George. She is the mother of 2 of the main characters. They are Nan and Virginia, both girls, both in aristocratic society, okay, in New York. And she's watching them play with their friends, and they're all female friends, and so she sits there and compares them in her mind of who is going to be the most easiest married off and who's the highest competition for her daughters. And it's very shallow. It's a very shallow inter monologue as she sits on the veranda and reflects on like her life as a mother, her life as a young girl, her life after she got married as a wife. And so we meet these girls as they are just like free and playing and dancing and just having fun in girlhood. So there's Virginia St. George and Annabelle St. George, who for most of the book goes by Nan. And then there are her friends Lizzie Elmsworth. Maribel comes in later. Mabel. What? Are you? Oh, because that last name is Maybelle comes in a couple chapters later, but she's part of the Elmsworth family. And then there's this odd kind of like everyone wants to leave her out young girl, but the girls love her.
Yeah, she's like exotic, fun. She's from Brazil.
But she's got a scandalous backstory, so they're like, we can't. The mothers don't want their daughters associating with her, but the daughters are so close with her. And her name is Conchita Clausen. And why was I wanted to say something about her. Oh, all of them are new money. So they're all trying to make it. They are rich. They're rich enough to run with those of New York, but they're new money, so they're not as accepted. So this story is told from like the outside looking into this high society. And two of the daughters, Lizzie and Virginia, are now out in the season to find husbands.
They're on the marriage market.
And they're struggling. And so Mrs. St. George is like, well, all of the other daughters that are really rich and find husbands have a governess. So she goes on to try and hire a governess. And the governess that comes in, her name's Miss Tess Valley. And she is like, she is hot in demand because she comes from England. So this is in New York in America. She comes from England and she has been the governess for like dukes. I think maybe even the prince, I can't remember, but definitely the dukes, and a bunch of like very high respected names.
She's also related to a very renowned poet, right?
Poet, yep.
And so that
Italian,
and she's like very highly sought after. She's well read, she's smart, like Miss St. George knows if anybody can get her daughters married off to wealthy families that are old money, it's Miss Tess Valley.
Right. She's Nan's governess. So the girls, we kind of have like this introduction to them. You can tell that they are not just these great little like gentle ladies. They smoke behind their parents' back and they run with this girl that no one really should be accepting in society, but they're like, we don't care, Mom. We like her. And Mom, Mrs. St. George, the reason it's so scandalous is because her parents she's not her dad's daughter. So
she's illegitimate.
She's illegitimate. Her mom, we don't know if she was married before and had this baby. We don't know where Mom comes from, but we know she's either divorced or widowed is the rumor, and she may or may not be married to Mr. Clausen. And so it's very scandalous. And so Miss St. George is like, no, you cannot run with her because no one in high society will accept you if you're her friend. But Mr. St. George is doing business with Mr. Clausen, and he's like, you have to be nice to her, to Mrs. Clausen, because I need this business deal to go through. So he gets his daughters. It's like him and his daughters against Mrs. St. George. And so she has to accept them.
Right.
Well, they still struggle. They still can't get into the parties. So they go to meet Mrs. Tess Valley at the train station. And it's all of them together instead of just Nan. It's this whole friend group. And they're singing and they're dancing and they're like playing games. And Miss Tess Valley's like, I love them. They are just this brilliant picture of girlhood and freedom and sort of beauty. It's mentioned a lot that they're like kind of pretty, but it's their personalities that are really strong. They're like, she's like, Lizzie Elmsworth has this dark beauty about her. She's dark featured, dark hair, sharp eyebrows keep getting mentioned. Virginia is very pale beauty, like blue eyes, blonde hair, thin, just like pale beauty. Nan is not pretty at all, but she's brilliant, and people love to talk with her. She's clever, she's witty, she knows art, she knows poetry. Mabel, what's about her?
She's kind of like a side character of the story, but she does end up marrying really, really well.
Yeah.
At one point they call him a king, but I don't think he's actually a king.
No, I think he's
from like Minnesota, so he's definitely not a king.
Oh.
But they're saying like he's a king because he has a ton of wealth. He's American.
Okay.
So
and then Conchita is, like you said, exotic. She's got red hair. I cannot figure out what this girl looks like.
She's like dark skin, red hair, sullen. Like, what do they say about her eyes? They're like sunken. They're like so weird about her description.
Somehow she's the prettiest though.
Yeah, they were basically Miss Tess Valley. I think it's Miss Tess Valley describes Conchita and is like, it's either her or Miss St. George describes Conchita and is like, if I were to just tell someone all of the features about this girl, it would be enough for them to be like, no, I'm not interested. But when you see her with all these features, it like works for her.
Yeah, like, she's like wild. Yeah. I can't even like picture what she should look like.
I can because I'm thinking about this.
Well, the show, and she is a good Conchita, but she doesn't look anything like what the book says.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like she does.
So then, while they're at the train station with Miss Tess Valley, there's this man. His name is Richard. What's his last name? Maribel. And he knows Miss Tess Valley, so he plays a little trick. He pretends to steal her luggage, and Miss Tess Valley turns out she's like, Richard, what are you doing here? And then he meets all of these girls, and he is taken by Conchita. She's the prettiest girl he's ever seen. They're in love immediately. Then the book does a random time jump, and now they're engaged. Like, that's the beginning of the book. Time jump. Conchita and Richard are engaged.
Here's the thing, and I'm gonna stop you right here because we have to say this.
Okay.
This book does a lot of random time jumps, and it switches narrators like you would not believe.
We have to talk about that.
It's like we're in somebody's brain, and then you turn the page, and you're in somebody else's brain.
Yes,
it's so odd. It's very hard to follow.
Very few. I say few. I've only read two books that does omniscient third-person narration. It's not crafted anymore. People don't write like that anymore. But at one point, because it's also it's the third book I've read, because it's also in the one that I got from the thrift store, At War with Herself, that was written hundreds of years ago. It seems like it used to be more normal, where you could just jump inside. You could know what anyone was thinking at any time. So it opens with Mrs. St. George's point of view, but then we get in Miss Tess Valley's point of view. We get into Mr. St. George's. There will be a random sentence in the middle of someone else's point of view about what that person's thinking, the other person.
Yeah.
So that is, you're right. It jumps around a lot. So
it was
we're
very
in a time jump.
I would suggest, just before we move on, I would suggest, like, if you are interested in reading this book, which you should be, read it. Don't listen to it, because the audiobook doesn't say. This book is broken up into parts.
Yep.
And the audiobook will not tell you what part you're in. And it's more confusing because, again, you just jump from narrator to narrator and
time to time.
Like in this, at least there's like page breaks, and it says like book 1, book 2, book 3. And so you have like a little bit, it makes a little bit more sense to read it like the physical book.
I think the only other important note from part 1 to know, the only other important note to note is that Nan and Miss Tess Valley, they immediately click, and Nan didn't want a governess at all originally. She was very against some woman that's going to make her read and study all the time and just not let her have fun.
It's just so strange because Nan enjoys that. She likes being well-read. She likes reading.
She had a friend who had a governess who was miserable, and so she was afraid of it.
But she's also Nan is very immature. She's very immature. She doesn't.
Well, I was going to talk about that, because is she immature, or were, like, to me, all of them were?
Yes, they were all immature in their own ways, but Nan is written very much like in my head. Every time Nan's mentioned, I just envision like a little girl like stomping her feet.
Yeah, because she's 16 in the opening of the book, but she talks like she's 12 or 13. And I actually made a note of like how youthful these girls are, because Virginia's the same way, and she's 18, and she goes on to be like 20 and 21, and they are just so youthful. And I don't know if that's just a sign of the times, or if that's because Edith romanticized girlhood so much. I don't know, to be honest, but yeah, they are very youthful, and it's strange because they're supposed to be like 16 and 18. But Nan did not want a governess, but she meets Miss Tess Valley. She's impressed by Miss Tess Valley, like being relate to a famous poet that Nan loves.
Mhm.
And so they immediately click, and that's important. So then we go into part 2, and Conchita is engaged to Richard. And so she gets her husband, and all the other girls are still struggling. Seasons have passed. They don't have husbands. And they're now going to be bridesmaids, though, for Conchita, which is huge. And so then they get to go to England. It is important to talk about Richard a little bit more because he has a history. He has a history
with our own Miss Tess Valley.
He and Miss Tess Valley used to hook up when she was a governess in his house.
Absolutely scandalous. And she is 10 years his senior.
10 years his senior, so we're not sure how old Richard was in the show, which we're probably going to compare more later.
We are going to
We'll get into that.
And we'll get into that.
In the show, though, it's very traumatic what happens between them. In the book, it sounds like it was just a little affair, not as much of what the show
Yeah,
makes
and we don't even know, like, they don't even
they mention it for a couple sentences.
It's not even, like, it's kind of alluded to. It's not really said that they, like, slept together or anything like that. Is it?
It kind of is. It says that he would
walk up and down
her hallway in the late hours of the night, and that she thought she was going to get in trouble because Richard was a scandalous person from the get. His parents were constantly worried about him gambling, worried about him with other women, and so at one point he like gets cut off and sent away, and they pull Miss Tess Valley into a room, and the mom is going off about Richard, and she's like, she knows something, and then she just goes like, he's just like gambling away his riches, and so he's got to go, and she's like, oh, she doesn't know.
Yeah,
like that's like a moment that happens in the book. So,
but in the show, it's a lot. We'll talk about the show later.
Yeah,
we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. So now the girls are bridesmaids in Conchita's wedding, so they get to go to London, and they're part of this big wedding. And then Miss Tess Valley, she's so used to London that she goes to Mrs. St. George, and she's like, I can get your girls married here. Maybe they can't get in the United States, but here they're going to have a real shot. You should move here for the season and get these girls married. And Mrs. St. George is all about it. She's like, pack us up.
Did we mention the part where
No.
Richard secures them an invitation?
No, you should talk about that.
So there's a part where Miss Tess Valley goes to Richard, and they're chatting, and she's like, can you please get my girls an invitation to this big assembly ball?
Because he was invited.
Because he was invited.
He's from England. This ball was happening in New York.
Yeah. Okay. So it was the assembly ball in New York, and the girls were not invited because I think it was Miss Paramore. She's like this.
She's old money.
She's old money. She's throwing the ball. She's in charge of inviting whoever, I guess. And so she was not inviting these new money girls. She doesn't like them. She's like, they don't belong in our high society. Absolutely not. And so Miss Tess Valley goes to Richard, and she's like, I bet you could get my girls an invitation. And he was like, how could I possibly? And she's like, you're a lord. Just say I would like some extra invitation.
Well, they make a deal, though. He has written to his family to accept his marriage, and they won't accept it. He hasn't heard back. And he tells her, like, he says he wrote to the family. But Miss Tess Valley in her head's like, did you really? He needs them because he's rich, but they're not accepting his marriage, and he hasn't told Conchita's family that. So they're kind of like, where's your family?
Yeah, it's like an awkward
And for whatever reason, Miss Tess Valley has pull with that. So they make a deal where she's like, I'll keep your secret safer. I'll get someone to write home for you if you get these girls into this party. He's like, how am I supposed to do that? She's like, you're from London. You're rich.
You're a lord.
You're a lord. Get them in.
She said, because you're Lord Richard.
Yeah. Yep.
So he gets them into this party.
It talks again about how complimentary these girls are as a group. They walk in, and these men want to dance with them. They don't want to secure them as wives, but they want to dance with them, be around them, talk to them all night. Nan doesn't get to go because she's too young. She has a moment with Miss Tess Valley about that. And also, though, right before that, I think this is really important. I had this underlined. It's only Conchita that gets to go because she is Richard's fiance. And Miss Tess Valley's watching these other girls, and Mrs. St. George is the only one who's jealous. Virginia's not jealous. Nan is not. They're just so excited that their friend gets to go, that they're helping her look prettier and prettier and prettier with her dress and stuff. And I just think it's so important because Miss Tess Valley watches them, and she's like, that's pure beauty. None of these girls all of these girls emanate a beauty that their mothers never could because their mothers are so stuck up.
Yeah, they're so concerned about societal standards.
And these girls just aren't. And I just think that's really important to their character.
Yeah, and just being proper and stuff. But you know what? I think that's important. That is important to note because yes, Miss St. George was a gossip. She was a problem. But at the same time, I think we did talk about this separately. Sorry.
Sorry.
We did have a
we
bit
know
of a
you
discussion.
guys really wanted to hear this.
But it is important to note, you kind of helped me realize, like, maybe she just was so nervous about them being new money, having this money, and being so afraid to lose it. Like, you guys have to do everything by the book.
Yeah.
Because if not, we're going to lose our wealth and our place in society.
She wanted the best for her daughters.
Yeah, that's what it ultimately came down to.
Yeah. I mean, it's a problematic society, right? So she was problematic. But so then they go to the ball. Everyone's enthralled by them, but they don't secure husbands. Conchita goes to London, and Miss Tess Valley convinces all of them to move to London. They're there. And then it switches to a chapter from now Guy's point of view, Guy Thwart and his father. And they live at this place called Honor's Love. And they are going to lose it if Guy can't secure some wealth somewhere. So he has this, his dad wanted him to marry rich and just be this gentleman in high society of London.
But Guy says, and this is one of my favorite quotes.
Go ahead.
That's why I'm
Take it away, girl.
Guy says that he would rather make wealth than marry it. Yeah. And I love that because that's so him.
He's a good guy.
He is a good guy.
Guy's a good guy.
Guy is a good guy.
So Guy accepts this job in South America where he's about to go away, but he, at some point, the book does not mention, has already met Nan, and he is taken by her. So he's talking to his dad about hosting these American girls, and his father is like, "You're not bringing savagery in this house." Like, yeah, like Americans not because accepted by London society.
Guy is English.
Yes,
they're not nobility.
I'm sorry, yeah,
but they are English,
and they own a lot of property and a lot of land. And his father, it says, like, his father gained his wealth. Well, he rejected his wealth, basically. He wanted to be a painter and an inventor and all of these artistic things, but he wanted Guy to be a gentleman and be political and just have the life he didn't, because now they are losing their wealth because his father for so long refused to accept his responsibility of this wealth. So, but Guy's like, "No, I'm just like you, and I'm going to do this my way." So he convinces his father to host these girls for a party.
Like his going away party.
And he tells them, "You're going to love them." So anyway, the girls end up coming. Nan and Guy share this private moment where they're talking about the beauty of Honor's Love and how much they love it. And they have this connection. And then they leave, the girls. And Guy sits there and he's like, "If I wasn't going to South America, I would want Nan the second that she's out." Like she's probably 17 or 18 at this point. But the second she's out, I would have her. But I'm leaving, and it's not fair for me to even entertain that because she's going to have a husband by the time I'm back. So he just has that yearning. His yearning begins here. And she goes off. They go back to they're renting a cabin from another high society American woman who has been rejected by America and now lives in London. And they're renting from her, and they host these parties all the time where they're playing poker, they're playing games. It becomes a rumor in London of this crazy place of these American girls that just have these men over all the time. And in comes Seaton. And Seaton is Richard's brother?
Seaton is Richard's brother. Okay. Seaton is also the cousin of
the Duke of Tintagel. So Seaton is the prospect that everyone wants to hook Ginny up with. And they meet, they're cool, but Lizzie Elmsworth has now also come to London to find herself a husband. And Lizzie's also into Seaton. And Seaton likes them both. He says he's not... Teacup. Cheers to the tea. Oh, I dripped. And Seaton says he's not stimulated enough unless he has Ginny's beauty and Lizzie's mind pawning after him.
He needs both.
Pining after him, not pawning.
They're not pawning him off. Zing.
So they're pawning for him. Pining. They are pining for him. He loves it. He plays them all summer long, or Playboy. And that's really that.
It comes to a head when...
Go.
So there is this woman, Miss Churt. Is it Miss Churt? Is she the one?
Adina. I just know her in my head as Adina.
Okay, there is this woman, Miss Churt, and she knows Seaton. And she
wants Seaton too.
Well, for some reason, there's this weird vibe about Seaton. Even his mother was talking to Miss Tess Valley at one point and was like, "We just can't get Seaton to, like, be interested in a decent girl.
Right.
So he's got some issues too. So there's this stigma about Seaton. And so Miss Churt, when the girls move into this cabin, Miss Churt comes in and she's like, when I rent you this cabin, my only request is that Seaton is not allowed there.
Yeah. Yep.
And so fast forward, Seaton is hanging out with these girls
every day.
All the time. So what ends up happening is Miss Churt comes in and sees him there.
Let's see.
She comes in. She sees Seaton. They're playing poker, and she goes, deal me in. I love poker. So she's playing poker with them, talking about whatever. She calls Seaton out.
She says, you were supposed to meet with me for lunch, and you've been here every day, so I thought I'd come see what the fuss is about.
And so she ends this game, and remember, Lizzie and Virginia are both into Seaton.
Oh, and real quick, right before this happens, Maybelle, there's another man there named Mr. Robinson, and Maybelle takes him aside and says, Seaton's been playing with my sister all summer long, between like ping ponging between these two girls. We need to keep Lizzie. We need to keep Ginny away so that Seaton can propose to Lizzie, because he really likes Lizzie. He just thinks that Ginny's pretty. So help me out, help me here. And Robinson agrees to it, but then he's upset because he really likes Lizzie. Okay, go back.
Yeah, all the friends are all into each other. Okay, they say, you know what? Stay here for dinner. And she's like, oh, it's so funny. It's so weird to be invited to your own home for dinner.
Yeah.
But I actually got to go. I'm going to go back to London, and I'm taking Seaton with me.
Yep. We got to get out of here.
And so the girls, Lizzie and Virginia, are like, what? No, you can't take him. And so they don't even talk about it. They just devise this plan in a second. And Lizzie's like,
it's Lizzie.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting too.
Yeah. And Lizzie's like, oh, well, we were just about to share the news with everyone that Seaton proposed to Ginny. And Miss Churt was like, what? And so I think that's how they get engaged.
Yeah,
he doesn't even propose.
He doesn't propose. Or if he does, he does it right then and there. He's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And if that becomes...
And then so Ginny and Seaton do end up getting married.
Which I also love. This comes back to their sisterhood of Lizzie sacrifices the fact that she really wants to marry Seaton to get everything settled here. She said, enough is enough. You guys just get engaged.
She's
have him.
Yeah, because
it's her plan. She comes out with that.
She comes up with that off the dome. But I think it more so has to do with the fact that, okay, this is a woman coming in and she's trying to steal our prospect. If I can't have him, my girl's gonna get him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So she ends up doing that. They get married.
Which is fine because Lizzie marries
Robinson, Hector Robinson, the man he is.
They're the best couple in the whole story. And I don't even think that was intentional. Okay, so then in all of this fuss, Miss Teskell is like, this isn't good for my girl, Nan. She's too young to be around all of this.
Too much stimulation.
Yeah, and she doesn't need to be wrapped up in these scandalous stories before she's even out. So she goes to Mrs. St. George and she says, let me take Nan away for a little bit while the season's happening. And she'll come back when she's grown and ready. And Mrs. St. George agrees to it. So Nan goes with Miss Tess Valley and they get an inn that's away from all this mess. And one day Nan's out and she's just reflecting on growing up. She doesn't really want to, blah, blah, blah. As she's out there, in comes this male. And it's not Guy Thwart that she's already met. The narration switches to a man named Ushant talking with his mother, who is like, you haven't married yet. You absolutely need to marry. You absolutely need an heir. And he doesn't want to marry because all of these women are shallow that he meets. No one is stimulating enough. Everyone knows exactly who he is and what his title is. Mm-hmm. And so he is over all of the women. So he goes on a walk one day on the beach to just blow off some steam.
After telling his mom, I'm not marrying until I meet someone who doesn't know who the heck I am.
Yeah. And then he runs into Nan. And Nan is on the beach reflecting about growing up in marriage or whatever. And she's like, oh, I recognize you. You're Mr. Robinson from the cabin. And he's like, the second she says, I recognize you, his guard goes up. But then when she says, Mr. Robinson, his guard goes right back down. He's like, who? Come again? And he's like, no, I'm not. And she says, like, well, I've seen you at the cabin with all my American sisters, whatever. And what's your name? He says, Ushant Tintagel. And she says, oh, yes, I know you. And he goes, great. And she goes, my governess was the governess for your sisters at some point. And he's like, oh, so you don't know who I am, because she has yet to say who he is. So he's kind of into her. He walks her home back to the inn, and Miss Tess Valley sees it. And Nan comes in, she's kind of blushing. She's like, I just met this guy. We really kind of, what's the word?
Hit it off.
That's the exact word I was looking for. And Miss Tess Valley goes, you mean the Duke of Tintagel? The Duke? And she says,
The Duke?
The Duke? She goes, oh, I didn't think he was the Duke. He said his name was Ushant Tintagel, but I just thought he was the younger brother. So that is basically from there, the Duke loves Nan so much because she doesn't know anything about the Duke.
Although he is
That's the only reason.
Really reluctant to marry an American woman. So he actually says, like, I'm not going to marry until I find someone just like Nan who is English.
Yep.
But so that I don't forget the woman that I want, I'm going to keep studying the prototype. I'm going to keep studying Nan.
Coming around. He walks her home like every day. They meet and then walk home. And then eventually he does go to Miss Tess Valley and requests to marry her. I guess she's out at that point. Mm-hmm. Does she get married before she's out?
I think maybe she gets married. Oh, it's irrelevant.
So they agree to that. They get married. And I don't know where it goes from there.
The opening scene after the Duke talks to Miss Tess Valley, we don't even get that in the book. We just get him going to Miss Tess Valley and
that he's allowed to.
Well, she doesn't say yes. She says, sorry. He's like, I think it's customary to talk to the woman and see if she feels the same way.
Right.
Instead of just organizing something. But I just came to you to see if you knew if her feelings were the same. And Miss Tess was like, I can't reveal that. You're going to have to ask Nan. And so from there, we jump 2 years.
2 years.
We jump 2 years, and Nan is married to the Duke of Tintagel. She is now not Annabelle St. George. She is Annabelle Tintagel. And so we jump into that, finding out that she's been married for 2 years to the Duke. She's now the Duchess, and she's having a full-blown identity crisis. She's like, who am I? I think I have this page marked, and I would love to read it, because it's just, it was just such a beautiful description of, like,
that's what I was going to say before you
read
it.
Yeah, like having to find yourself again as a wife.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's such a good story for womanhood, from girlhood to womanhood, because it really gets into those conversations that women have when they are married, when they even become a mother, like that identity crisis of, well, I was this person, who is this new person? Where are all my interests, and
she says that. I'm going to skip around because I don't want to read this whole thing.
Right.
But so she basically starts this inner dialogue saying, Annabelle Tintagel. Who is Annabelle Tintagel? And then skipping. Annabelle Tintagel was a strange figure with whom she lived and whose actions she watched with a cold curiosity, but with whom she had never arrived at terms of intimacy and never would. Of that she was now sure. And then skipping a little bit more, she says, she was now to all appearances Annabelle Tintagel and had been so for over 2 years. But before that, she had been Annabelle St. George. And the figure of Annabelle St. George, her face, her voice, her likes and dislikes, her memory and moods, all that made up her tremulous little identity, though still at the new Annabelle's side, no longer composed the central Annabelle, the being with whom this strange new Annabelle of the Corregia room at Longlands and the Duchess's private garden felt herself really one. And I love this line. There were moments when the vain hunt for her real self became so perplexing and disheartening that she was glad to escape from it into the mechanical duties of her new life. But in the intervals, she continued to grope for herself and to find no one. She just, and it's all throughout the rest of the book.
Yeah,
she has this identity crisis of just like, who even am I now?
And it's because the English expectations she doesn't understand how to be this Duchess woman with all of these customs. And that's why the Duke originally was like, I need a London girl or an English girl, because America is way more free. So, and they have, on top of that, they have nothing in common. The Duke is dry. This is in the very first conversation. He doesn't read poetry.
He literally calls himself dull in his inner monologue when they first meet.
Yeah, because she's just bright and she wants to talk about poetry and art and love. And he's like, I don't have time for that. What he does enjoy is clocks.
Clocks. The man loves him some clocks.
He likes to take them apart, rebuild them. He understands how they work. There's a moment where his mom is like, women aren't clocks. As simple as clocks. So he goes, a woman would say clocks are simple. Clocks are so complex.
Like,
please,
complex. You know nothing of the clocks.
But he does still love Annabelle anyway. He wants her to love him back. They try to be intimate. She doesn't understand intimacy, so it scares her. She locks him out of her room a lot. I think the first 3 weeks of their marriage. Oh wait, no, that's Edith's story.
That's Edie girl.
I'm getting them confused now because Edith writes a lot. Well, most authors do a reflection of themselves, and so her backstory, which we'll get into, really reflects Nan a lot. But so she has this miserable marriage. Then she gets pregnant, and she loses the baby. She has a miscarriage, and now she's even more depressed. And it was allegedly it was a boy. The Duke swears it's a boy, so she lost his heir, and that causes a lot of
tension.
Yeah, and just tumultuous back and forth in their marriage. And his mother, the dowager, she's very involved in this, and she's got a lot of bitterness towards Nan because the Duke gives Nan so much freedom that not even so much, but more than she had. So anytime he goes to her for advice, her inner thoughts, the dowager, is, oh, I was never allowed to lock my husband out. If only I was allowed to lock him out on nights I was tired. Well, in all of this, Conchita comes to Nan, and she is not happy in her marriage with Dick because he's away all the time. Sorry, Richard. They end up calling him Dick.
So Lord Richard.
This is Dick.
Lady Dick.
Lady Dick.
Even better. Lord Richard, they call him Dick, like everybody who knows him and loves him.
Yeah, which is normal.
Yeah, but then they call Conchita Lady Dick, which is disturbing. Anyway.
So she's not happy because Richard is always away, and he is equally as finicky with his money as he was when his parents sent him away in the first place, and his parents have cut him off. They don't agree with his marriage. They never liked him, and so she is miserable. She takes on other lovers. She tells Nan, like, I would be into that guy, and Nan's like, you're married. That's weird, you know. But Nan is also having this inner pull because she remembers Guy Thwart, and so she is miserable with the Duke and missing Guy Thwart, who is in South America for a while. So she goes to Conchita to confide in her about what would you do in this situation. And Conchita is there being like, you look so great. Marriage looks so good on you. You look so happy. And then she gets into, also, I need money. A lot of money. I need 500 pounds. And Nan's like, I don't even get that as an allowance. And I don't have the relationship with my husband to ask him for that. So Conchita is like sobbing about how miserable her life is, how much she needs this money to get out of her debts that Dick keeps putting her in. And she gets up and she like leaves. She's like, don't even worry about it. You don't even think about me. It's clear that you don't have the time or whatever to even think about giving this money. And Nan's like, I'll try and think of something, I promise. And she goes to Ushant and she says, I need some money. I owe the seamstress in town. And Ushant is like, okay, sure. Yeah. How much money do you need? And she's like, 500 pounds. And he goes,
and he goes,
you better tell me where that money's going.
500 pounds. He actually says that. 500 pounds.
And she says, yeah, like I owe this money. And he says, well, what is it for? And I will give it to you. And she says, nope, you don't get to know that. And that is just so out there.
Counterculture to English society, counterculture to like nobility.
Yeah.
You know, she
says like, you're going to give me the money or I'm not going to get the money, but you're not giving me the money because I told you, I'm not telling you. And so she leaves and he kind of is very like fatherly. He finally kind of puts his foot down with her being like, I am your husband. I do deserve this information. And she's like, you don't. And she leaves.
She's like, you can't order me about like a child. Like you can't go on like this. And he was like, well, if you're not going to let me order you around by like a child, then you're going to force me to order you around like a wife. But he loves her a lot. And he needed to, like, he felt that he needed to set that.
Yeah,
that standard.
It was a threat, though. It was a sexual threat, actually.
I think.
Remember, I read you the next part, and you're like, okay, yeah, I see that now. He says, it's been a while since I've called on you for a favor. So if I can't order you around like a child, I'm going to start ordering you around like a wife. And then, like, I forget what it is, but the next paragraph does say that it was about that.
She says, you can't make me, nobody can make me. But still, I don't think. I interpreted that when I read it as like, you can't make me tell you things that I don't want to. You can't make me give my secrets away, give that information
I think
away.
It was just the favorite part that made me think it was a lot more serious.
But
especially because he goes to her after that.
Yeah, but it does say in the text that it cost him something to say those words, because he does love Annabelle. He was like trying to be assertive with her. Like,
he knows
I need to get control back in my marriage, and she's out of control, so I need to put my foot down. But he like had to force out the words.
Yeah, and he like knows she's not happy. She's not this girl on fire that he met before. She's always sad. She's always distant. They don't talk. Even over dinners and stuff, it's just very dry. And so anyway, he ends up giving her the money without her even asking ever again. He just writes it out, leaves it on her desk in her room. But then he goes to her later, and so it switches to him talking with his mom about this. He goes to her for advice, and he says, yeah, she really wanted this money. And mom's like, why? And he goes, she wouldn't tell me. And mom's like, it's unacceptable. He goes, yeah, I know, but I gave her the money anyway. And she's like, you're so sweet. I can't believe you, like, you're so good.
She's saying out loud, you're such a good person. You're so generous. Like, oh, what an amazing husband you are. What an amazing duke you are. But in her head, her inner monologue is like disgusted. First of all, she's like,
not about him though. She's disgusted because of her life.
She's disgusted because for two reasons. One, she says, how dare Nan?
Right.
Like, how dare she? How does she not realize that she needs to be more respectful to her husband? She can't just be doing all these things. But she also says, what is the limit to Ushan's softness or something like that when it comes to Nan? So she's like, is he really going to let this girl walk all over him? That's so disappointing. But she's also like, Nan is the worst. I can't stand her.
But she also holds a bitterness towards her because she's like, I wish I got away with that. If only I could have gone to the Duke and been like, can I have 500 pounds? And I'm not telling you why. Or no, you can't come into my room tonight. Because what happens is he goes to Nan afterwards and he says, she thanked me beautifully. And she's like, oh, great. And he goes, so then I expected,
when I asked
we would
to
be
stay
able
the
to
night
sleep together.
Yeah.
And Nan says, no, not tonight. I'm too tired. And then that's when she has that other thought of like, I wish I would have been able to lock the Duke out some nights.
Yeah. And then he like insisted again or something. He was like, well, I could stay, whatever. And then Nan says something along the lines of like, I didn't realize we were bargaining. I didn't realize that this was part of a bargain.
Nan, I love her.
I didn't realize you were only giving me the money because you wanted to sleep with me.
Right. And he doesn't. That's not what I meant. Not what I meant. And he leaves. Mm-hmm. So he just goes for advice from his mom. So whatever. She gets the money. She gives it to Conchita. And then
Annabelle has written Guy a letter saying that the Duke really wants him to take this seat in, I keep wanting to say Parliament. It's something along the lines of like something political. So somebody else is stepping down, they're retiring, and there's an open seat, and the Duke wants Guy to take that seat. And so Nan writes him a letter encouraging him, hey, come for our hunting party.
Oh, yep.
And that's in your copy as well?
Yes, yeah, the hunting party.
Right, so that's still Edith.
and the hunting party is pretty scandalous because of this, because he wasn't on the original invite list, and she kind of pushes for him to be invited to this party.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, the Duke really wants you to come to this hunting party, like, please be our guest. And so he ends up coming. And so from there, he shows this letter to his dad, and his dad's like, it's not even a question. The Duchess and the Duke are requesting you to have this seat. This is literally what I've always wanted for you, to be in society, to be
as a gentleman
in like
politics.
Absolutely.
He's basically a spokesperson for the Duke in all matters of politics. Mm-hmm. So if anything comes up in court where they're trying to go over laws and things like of that nature, he goes and he speaks for the Duke. That's what his role is.
Yeah. Well, that's what his role would be.
Right, yeah.
So he goes to the hunting party. They have their little reconnection moment.
Yeah.
He ends up leaving the party early because the Duke wants him to look into something, and he needs to go and he needs to prepare for this speech or whatever. And so he walks off from the rest of the hunting group, finds Nan sobbing. She's like,
because of this money situation.
Yeah, this is like in between the Duke's narration and conversation with the Dowager, his mom, and Nan
it's right after their fight,
because
so they get into the fight about the money right before the Duke has to go out to the hunting party.
Yes, like 25 minutes before he has to
go. Exactly. So she's sobbing after this fight. Who am I? Again, why am I in this situation? I don't know this man.
Yeah, I wish I could help my friend out of this situation, but I don't want to air her business out and whatever. So she's having this, internal crisis, and she feels trapped. She feels like a caged bird. And so Guy ends up finding Nan, running into her and being like, why are you crying? What's wrong? And he looks at her like this little child. He wants to hold her and give her kisses and stuff, he says. But then she actually gets angry at him.
Yeah, she's mad at him. Why are you here?
Yeah, are you spying on me?
Nosy.
Did you follow me here? How dare you? Blah, blah, blah. And so he's like, whoa, I'm so sorry. I didn't follow you. I didn't mean to, I just happened upon you. And now that I found you though, in this distress, I want to help you. And she's like, I don't want your help. No, go away. And he is like heartbroken by this because he's like, I love this woman and she's telling me to go away. And so he tells her, how do you expect me to see you like this, knowing how I feel about you, and just walk away from it? How do you think that makes me feel to hear you say that I cannot be of any use to you? She changes her mind and she's like, okay, you're right. You do mean a lot to me and I'm sorry. And you just thinking even of you as a friend just gives me a lot of comfort. So that ends there with him kissing her hand, and he wants to tell her that he loves her and she knows it. And so she's like, please don't say anything else to me right now. And he was like, I want this more than anything, but I'll wait. I'll wait and I'll respect you, because he knows that he says in his inner dialogue that he understands that the balance of their friendship depends on him not pushing this issue of him being in love with her.
Right.
So he respects that, even though he really just...
He says, like, I want it more than anything, but I will put it off to be able to just be this woman's friend. And then he kisses her hand and the scene ends there. In that conversation, she does talk about how she has lost the young girl that he used to know and that she doesn't know where to find it. And he's kind of like, well, maybe I could help you bring it back. That's part of that conversation. I think that's really important.
Yeah. But and then after that is when the Duke has the conversation with the Dowager.
And in that conversation, Nan has also gone to him and said at some point, I want to go away. And it's like, you can't just leave your husband and have a separation. That's scandalous. Everyone will be like, that will be the talk of the town.
Yeah.
And she says, no, I want to go away. And so he goes to the Dowager for advice. Dowager is the same inner monologue. This is disgusting. I can't believe, how dare she? I wish I could have gone away at some point in my life, and I wasn't allowed to. So, but she ends up saying, well, why don't you send her to Champions? Because that's where our family is. So it'll look like she's just going to stay with family. And the Duke agrees to it because he loves her and wants her to be happy and have freedom.
And it's like good. It's good for both of them.
Yeah.
Like,
So then she goes to Champions. Guy is there. And there is some rumors that happen there with them just being around each other, because then she writes, so then Guy has to leave Champions and he's going to Lizzie Elmsworth and Mr. Robinson's house. And so then Nan writes to Lizzie, oh, friend, I miss you so much. I want to come visit. And the Edith Wharton's version ends with this scene of Lizzie getting the letter, going to her husband, so excited. My friend's going to come visit. Nan said she wants to come visit. And Mr. Robinson's like, she invited herself? And she's like, yeah, but she's Nan.
I think it's more along the lines of he was surprised that the Duchess was coming there because they don't have the accommodations for a Duchess. Like, he was more nervous that the Duchess was coming here.
He does say something about her inviting herself.
Yeah.
Because he's putting things together that Lizzie isn't really putting together. And he's putting together, wasn't she just in Champions? Wasn't Guy just in Champions? Isn't Guy supposed to come here for us to host soon? So he's bringing this up to Lizzie, and Lizzie's like, no, that's so much more innocent than that. And they just have this fun little conversation about gossip, about Guy and
Hector Robinson is one of the girls. Let me just tell you.
He is the husband with her.
He's the husband that we all want.
And he admires her too.
He's like reading his newspaper. He's reading his newspaper. Is this that part?
Yeah.
And he's reading his newspaper, and Lizzie's like, oh, you won't believe this. And he puts down his newspaper and he's like sad.
Yeah.
Like, he's just
they're
like,
my favorite relationship.
I love them so much.
And there's not even a lot about them. They get 3 scenes together, but he loves her.
Yeah.
And that just shows that they just have a very happy marriage. So it ends there. Edith Wharton, rest in peace, dies before we get to know what happens when Nan comes to Champions with Guy there.
But we do know, because of the way that she outlines the ending of the book, very loosely, she knows who she wants to end up together.
Yeah.
And so that's literally all we know.
So in her synopsis, which is in my copy of that, don't have today, but in her synopsis, she says that eventually Nan is going to end up with Guy Thwart and leave the Duke, and he will sue her for leaving. And it actually all comes back to Miss Tess Valley. Miss Tess Valley is supposed to be in love with Guy Thwart's father. And that does happen in there. We just didn't really get into it because it wasn't. But so she's supposed to be in love with Guy Thwart's father. He's getting ready to propose to her. But then Miss Tess Valley helps Nan orchestrate this massive runaway where she can end up with Guy. And because of that, Guy Thwart's father finds out, and he's so angry because now his son is involved in this huge scandal and going to be sued by the Duke and probably arrested if they get caught, that he sends Miss Tess Valley away. And she ends up alone by herself back in London, poor, and having to start over again with her wealth.
And you know what? I feel like that is so important
to
this book because Edith Wharton never wrote a happy ending for people. But in this is the only work, which you pointed out, ironically, she didn't get to finish.
Where they were supposed to end up together.
This was her only work where the two love interests end up together in the end, because she herself did not end up with the person she says was the love of her life.
Right.
And she was in a very...
Yeah, so we can get into Edith Wharton now.
Yeah, because that's the end.
Right.
I mean, they all end up with Nan and
they follow
Guy.
the manuscript or the synopsis pretty well. It's just how they get there.
But I think that's important to know, because even though Nan and Guy ended up together, Miss Tess Valley, who is a huge part of this book, she is like the main narrator of the book.
Yeah,
I would say, right?
Yeah.
And she didn't get her happy ending with
Guy, and so so we can get into Edith now. Edith Wharton grew up high society, old money of New York, and she loved to write about the you can say that right. I always say it wrong. I say aristocracy. The aristocracy of New York. And she was her family was in this high society club.
Like old money.
Old money. And they were constantly invited to these balls. And it was only like 10 families. And her family was always there. She grew up going to these balls. And they were nicknamed, this group of people was nicknamed after, they were called like the Regency families or something, because they were always invited to the Regency balls. That's not the word, but and in her life, she marries very wealthy. But she wanted to be a writer. She wasn't allowed to be. She was pretty scandalous in her adulthood, but growing up, she was pretty conservative. So she was, a girl. She was a gentlewoman, a gentle lady. She marries. She's unhappy in her marriage. They do get divorced. And
then she becomes an expatriate. This is another one. Yes. Last week, we talked about expatriate Ernest Hemingway. This week we're talking about expatriate Edith Wharton, and there's a ton of them.
She has like 3 homes. They're like in Italy and London, and she spent some time in Paris.
Yep.
She gets involved with another writer. They are only platonic. She says they are soulmates, but they were platonic soulmates. Nothing ever happened with them. There's another one who was married that they end up not together, and that's the one that in her 40s they carried on an affair. And then he left, and that's the man that she attributes, like, that's the love of my life. But she had a best friend writer that she thought she would have been in love with, but it never turned into that. And then she like runs with a lot of just a different kind of crowd, a very countercultural crowd.
She's very
involved. Like she had
counter society people.
Even the man that she was sleeping with in her 40s was known to be bisexual, which is very interesting for that to be public knowledge,
especially in that time.
Yeah. So every novel she has written, in House of Myrrh, in Age of Innocence, she's got like 10 others, and they are almost always, she's only written 2 about families in poverty. They're almost always about rich families. None of those main love interests get to end up together. So this book is so different in that, because we already went over this, but like Nan and Guy get to end up in her plans, got to end up together. But then you have Miss Tess Valley, who is more of a reflection of Edith Wharton than Nan in many ways, and she does not get to end up with her lover. So she still had to throw some type of heartbreak in there, which I think is very interesting, that she just feels so compelled to do that.
That's her. What's the word? I want to say MO, but there's another.
Yeah,
there's a literary term for it. That's her like signature.
Yeah.
Signature move.
Her signature move is they don't have together. So we're gonna read Edith Wharton. Just know that they don't have together.
No happy endings for you.
Yeah. And she wait, what else? Oh, she was old money, so I thought that this book was very interesting because she writes about these new money families
and how they're not accepted into society, and how they're not, and the disparities between the two groups,
and how they're like on the outside looking in, and how they think about it. And I just wonder, because she makes Mrs. St. George so trying too hard, like with everything. I wonder if that's how she saw new money families. I don't know if she did or not. I genuinely just wonder about that, because she writes Mrs. St. George to be so shallow and so obsessed with being in these groups. So I don't know. But yeah, so that was her life. She has a very long, she has an autobiography. She has a professional scholar who wrote her biography. There's a lot of her life out there in the pages. And she is one of my, that's what makes her one of my favorite writers, is her life was so scandalous for her time. And it's just interesting that she just lived the life that you would expect a writer to live, you know?
So this is a synopsis only episode and history of the writer, because next week we're going to talk about we're going to analyze the book. We're going to talk about the characters. We're going to dive a little deeper into that. And we're going to do I'm so excited. We're going to talk about the show. This show is what got us into Edith Wharton.
Yeah.
You especially. Yes. And this show is probably the best show on television.
This show is incredible.
It does not get even half of the recognition that it deserves.
No, it doesn't. It's very underrated. It's
extremely
so good. I can't wait to talk about the show actually a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that they did Edith Wharton justice, even though it's very different from the story.
I think that they did an incredible job, and I think that if Edith Wharton was alive today, she would be obsessed with the show.
I think if Edith Wharton wrote this story in 2026, it would be a lot like the characters in the show.
Well, yeah,
because what she wrote about was, you know, what women struggled with in that society, and that's exactly what they did in this show.
And not for nothing, the casting was perfect.
Yeah,
I think the casting was so perfect.
Absolutely,
the personalities of the characters, like they just play these characters so well.
They really do.
We even said that because your book is based off of the BBC adaptation of the Buccaneers, which there's also an older BBC adaptation of the Buccaneers, a show, right? A show. And her book was written by the director of that.
She gives credit to the director, but it's finished she basically took what happens in that show and turned it into a novel,
the ending,
added it to the Buccaneers. Yeah,
she added it to the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
So, but based off of that rendition, you even said like this Apple TV adaptation is way more accurate to the book.
In certain parts, yeah.
So I'm really excited to get into that. You guys have to tune into that episode, because we're about to put you on to your favorite show.
And season 3 is coming out.
It is coming out. You're so nervous it wasn't going to get renewed.
Yeah, I know. Season 3 is in the works. So you have to get caught on one.
So excited.
It's not just Apple TV, though. You can start on Amazon Prime so you can be part of the conversation. And then I literally got an Apple TV subscription because I needed season 2. And season 2 is deep.
Did not disappoint at all. It was
We can't get into spoilers. Good. That's going to be so hard.
We can't get into spoilers.
But yeah, so we'll talk about it.
We'll get into that. And we'll get into that. But we have to...
Oh, yes, our
giveaway winner. We did a giveaway on our Instagram. If you're not following our Instagram, it is just at Dead Authors Club. We also have a TikTok account at Dead Authors Club 4.
Yeah,
I don't know why, but we can't change it.
Also, I will say, I just want to get into what it is. So the winner of this giveaway will get $100 gift card to the bookstore of their choice.
It can be a small bookstore. It can be a Barnes & Noble. It can be whatever.
Yeah, if there's that bookstore that you really want all those books for, you're about to find out. You're getting $100 to go spend there.
Yes, you are. Okay, so we have some names in here. I'm just gonna pick one out and see who's the winner. I'm so excited. All right,
pick one.
Oh, ring. Oh, sorry, whoever you are.
Benji 221.
Woo! You are the winner of $100 gift card to a bookstore of your choice. Let's see. I just want to see if they were also, because people's names were entered multiple times based on how many entries they got. It was also
so Benji, you won twice. You're only getting 100. So I have a wedding plan. All right.
So that is it for episode 6.
We're gonna get into the blame the author and all that good stuff that we always get into in our next episode.
Okay. Bye. Bye-bye.